The world has been captivated by an unprecedented surge in UFO sightings, which has resulted in a maelstrom of mystery and intrigue in 2024. Strange objects in the sky, inexplicable phenomena, and potential extraterrestrial encounters are being reported from all corners of the world. One thing is becoming increasingly apparent as more individuals come forward with uncanny experiences and astonishing footage. An extraordinary event is taking place. From luminous beams that defy the principles of physics to, the boundaries of our understanding of the universe are being pushed by the sightings of unidentifiable craft, which have been observed by both civilians and military personnel. The subject becomes increasingly urgent with each new piece of evidence. Are we on the cusp of a revolutionary discovery? Is this the year in which humanity ultimately solves the enigma of UFOs? In this video, we will explore the top 30 most incredible UFO sightings that continue to confound experts. The events in question are veiled in secrecy, leaving us to speculate about their nature, genuinely unconventional. Be prepared for an exhilarating expedition into the unknown, where the distinction between the extraordinary and the real is ambiguous. We should investigate the spectacles that have enraptured the world and have maintained our gaze toward the heavens in amazement. The Phoenix Lights of 1997 are the first. This is one of the most extensively discussed mass UFO sightings in history. And it has left everyone in a state of awe for over 26 years. This occurrence has resulted in the production of numerous documentaries and a horror film. The Phoenix Lights, which are also referred to as, participated in one of the largest military cover-ups in the history of the United States, the Lights over Phoenix, which were a series of widely observed unidentified flying objects that were observed in the heavens over Arizona and Nevada in the southwestern United States on March 13, 1997. Today, Theater in Scottsdale conducted a community forum regarding the Phoenix Lights. Excuse me, Harkins. A documentary was broadcast regarding this precise sighting. A series of enigmatic lights that formed a distinct V-shaped pattern were observed by thousands of witnesses. A pattern in the twilight heavens of Arizona. 5 floating lights were observed by some witnesses to be moving silently across the night sky. The lights were described as brilliant, constant, and arranged in a V-shaped or boomerang formation. Skeptics continue to challenge the official explanation, despite the U.S. Air Force's efforts to link the phenomenon to military pyrotechnics. Similar triangular aircraft have been observed in Sunrise, Florida, and even over Manhattan, New York. Therefore, were these lesser UFOs a component of the massive mothership that was observed in, what year is 1997? The second item is a UFO that was observed over Jerusalem. In 2011, a startling incident occurred in the Holy Land of Jerusalem, Israel. The manner in which the UFO ultimately disappeared into the night sky is what makes this sighting particularly unique. While on his evening promenade, this footage was captured by a Jerusalemite. He abruptly observed an exceedingly brilliant light atop the city and immediately initiated the video recording. However, the subsequent events were so terrifying that they terrified the individuals in attendance. The UFO gradually began to operate after a period of time. As it descended, it appeared to be on the brink of landing in the city. Onlookers, who were apprehensive, continued to gaze with their jaws agape, anticipating that this would be their initial encounter with an extraterrestrial being. Nevertheless, the UFO hovered for a brief period before abruptly ascending into the heavens at unprecedented velocities, just as it was about to descend. This occurrence occurred on the Temple Mount, also known as the Dome of the Rock, which is considered one of the sacred sites on Earth. This location is of significant significance in Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Consequently, individuals are engaging in speculation that this luminous orb or UFO was not present by chance, but rather with a predetermined objective. However, the reason for this unidentified flying object's presence over a location of religious significance remains unknown. The third item is the presence of white objects over Area 51. It is unsurprising that Area 51 has eventually been included in this list, given its association with UFO activity and extraterrestrial. The precise date of this sighting is unknown, however, the quality of the footage indicates that it was captured in the 1990s. For brilliant lights are immediately visible at the outset, orbs that are suspended in the atmosphere above the mountains. Then, abruptly, one of the orbs on the right side vanished, and the remaining 3 orbs also vanished. It is evident in the observers' voices that they are apprehensive about witnessing such an unnatural occurrence. No, it simply vanished. They are rapidly disintegrating. This location. This was followed by the observers erratically shifting their cameras in an attempt to locate the spheres. But to no avail. The phenomenon of orbs appearing in the sky and then dissipating is truly unnerving. The event of disappearing into thin air transpired twice more. In September 2018, 3 luminous spheres in the heavens in Texas briefly vanished before reappearing. In the same vein, 3 brilliant lights were observed in the night sky of New York in 2021. However, they gradually dissipated after a commercial flight approached, which they perceived as a potential threat. What is the destination of the lights? Where do they go? One of the mysteries that most UFO enthusiasts are perplexed by is the sudden disappearance of these brilliant objects, hunters. Number 4, a spherical unidentified flying object was observed in Colombia. Colombia is notorious for its prevalence of UFO sightings. Subsequently, we will discuss 2 additional instances in which metallic spheres were observed drifting in the skies of Colombia. However, this specific sighting occurred in 2023. It was captured on a commercial flight that was traveling from Bogotá to Cento. Commercial airlines operate at an altitude of approximately 40,000 feet. At such a high altitude, this metallic sphere was observed to be cruising in a straight line. If this were a weather balloon, it would be in a state of adrift and would not be traveling in a straight line. This does, in fact, indicate that it was being driven by a powerful force. On 2 additional occasions, metallic spheres of comparable size were observed in the Colombian sky. The initial incident took place in 2020 and was also captured by a pilot from a commercial aircraft. Upon viewing the footage, it will be evident that the sphere in question is identical in both appearance and movement to the one that was observed in 2023. A metallic sphere was encountered for the second time, appeared in May 2023, and the pilot who captured the footage narrowly missed a head-on collision with the incoming UFO. Is it possible that these metallic spheres are monitoring the Colombian military or the drug cartel? Or is there a covert extraterrestrial base in Colombia that we are unaware of? Western United States objects comprise the 5th category. Dr. Sean Kirkpater, the director of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, ARRO, disclosed this particular sighting to the public on May 31, 2023. The video was captured by a forward-looking infrared camera from a military range in the western United States in 2021. In this video, 3 unidentified objects are observed flying at high velocities and at extremely high altitudes, equidistant from one another in a precision-synchronized manner. The UAPs were monitored for nearly 4 minutes, and they maintained an equal distance, as if they were 3 lights emanating from a single craft. It is unthinkable for any current man-made aircraft to accomplish such a feat, as it would be challenging to maintain an equal distance for an extended period. Modern drones are capable of performing comparable coordinated maneuvers. However, these objects were flying at an altitude of nearly 40,000 feet, which is beyond the capability of consumer drones. Even ARRO has been unable to precisely identify the nature of these UFOs. However, how sophisticated is this extraterrestrial technology that it enables them to coordinate their movements as a single entity at such high velocities and altitudes? Should we be apprehensive about them, despite the fact that they are significantly more advanced than we are, when it comes to technology? Or should we aspire to the possibility that they will contribute their technology to the advancement of humanity in the event that they do establish communication? The 6th item is a UAP that Navy pilots observed over the ocean. The precise location of the final classified UFO sighting has not been disclosed. However, the Pentagon made this classified video public in April 2020, as it did with the previous 2 instances. This event occurred mere months after the swaying flying saucer was observed on the east coast of the United States. Based on the video, it appears that a metallic spheroid that is traveling in a straight line and is rushing across the ocean's surface. This also holds a remarkable resemblance to the metallic sphere that was observed in the Middle East in 2022, which repeatedly evaded the military drone sensor. Fortunately, the highly experienced pilots of the United States Navy were able to secure the metallic sphere. The Pentagon has released the aforementioned 3 videos this time, stating that the Department of Defense is publishing them to address any misconceptions that the public may have had regarding the topics. Whether or not the footage that has been circulating was genuine or if there is a hidden agenda behind the videos. The aerial phenomena depicted in the videos are currently unidentified. The 6th topic item on the list is a UFO that pilots observed in 2015. Pilots encountered a flying spacecraft that was traveling at an extraordinary rate of speed in the second classified video that was released to the public. This occurrence occurred in 2015 in the vicinity of the eastern coast of the United States. Initially, the aviator appeared perplexed by the sight of this UAP. What caused them to be even more surprised, the craft's midair maneuvering while traveling at high velocities, which involved a swaying movement from left to right. The pilot also observed that the UAP was traveling in opposition to the wind, which was traveling at a speed of 120 knots, or approximately 138 miles per hour, on that particular day. Therefore, in order to achieve such high velocities in spite of the wind's obstruction, this flying spacecraft would require an enormous amount of power. The Department of Defense has not yet determined the precise nature of this UAP. UAP detected by the Navy, ranked 8th, pilot in the state of California. Pilots of the United States Navy frequently conduct routine naval operations by flying over states. However, in 2004, a Navy aviator captured an extremely uncommon object on his radar during a routine aerial surveillance operation. Off the coast of California, this occurrence transpired. Initially, the pilot believed that his radar was malfunctioning, however, he soon realized that an aircraft was hovering directly in front of him. It was an oval-shaped object that maintained its position for an extended period, a period of time. This aircraft was not adhering to the standard laws of physics, as even the pilot who captured the footage had stated. The pilot reported this peculiar craft to the Department of Defense upon observing it. This video was classified by the Pentagon for nearly 16 years. However, in April 2020, the Department of Defense made it available to the public. In 2020, the public was also granted access to 2 additional classified videos. Number 9, a spherical UFO was observed by the United States Navy off the coast of San Diego. For the first time in history, UFOs were observed in close proximity to a U.S. Navy destroyer. The filmmaker and upologist, Jeremy Corbell, has once again released this video. In July 2019, a hostile confrontation occurred off the coast of San Diego. The UAPs swarmed around numerous Navy warships for hours, demonstrating a clear lack of concern for the U.S. Army. Jeremy Corbell reported that 8 other Navy ships in the same area reported similar occurrences over a 3-day period. The USS Omaha, one of the ships in question, encountered as many as 14 UFOs simultaneously. Time. The Omaha crew detected unknown objects that encircled the ship on multiple sensor systems for 2 lengthy hours on the night of July 15, 2019. A self-illuminated sphere with a diameter of at least 6 feet flew in close proximity to the Omaha for an extended period and was observed using a thermal sensor. After that, it simply vanished into the ocean. The Army personnel who observed the event are of the opinion that it was a coordinated interaction. Was this a display of prowess by the extraterrestrials or merely routine reconnaissance missions to monitor the activities of the most potent military in the world? Does this imply that they are preparing for a global invasion if UFOs and aliens are becoming visible to armies worldwide? Or are they simply evaluating our military technology to determine whether we pose a threat to them? Number 10. The Mexican Air Force observed unidentified flying objects. A single sighting of an unidentified flying object, UFO, is sufficient to induce tremors in the vertebrae of any observer. Consider the possibility of witnessing 11 of these unidentified flying objects simultaneously. Is it not possible for you to chill to death at that moment, sight? This is precisely what transpired to a Mexican fighter pilot in 2004. The Mexican Air Force was conducting routine surveillance operations for drug traffickers over the state of Camp, which is situated in southeast Mexico, on March 5, 2004. That was the moment the Mexican fighter pilot encountered not one, but 11 brilliant UFOs. This incident transpired at an extraordinary elevation of 11,500 meters above sea level. The pilot was placed in an extreme situation when these 11 UFOs appeared out of nowhere and encircled the military aircraft. He was in a condition of distress, as he believed that he was being attacked. Fortunately, no incidents of that nature transpired on that fateful day. Subsequently, the Mexican Air Force dispatched additional fighter aircraft to provide assistance to the aviator. This subsequently resulted in a mid-air pursuit. However, the UFOs were so swift that the Mexican fighter aircraft lost sight of them, and they were never seen again. The fighter pilot even stated that the UFOs were aware that they were being pursued. However, why would a military aircraft be surrounded by 11 unidentified flying objects? A hostile confrontation of this nature has never been recorded before. Or perhaps there is more to the narrative than meets the eye. The 11th UFO to be observed was in Chile. A committee for the investigation of anomalous aerial phenomena was formally established by the Chilean government in 1997. The committee was established with the singular objective of examining all complaints of UAP activity by commercial military and civilian pilots. In 2014, one such documented incident that was extensively publicized occurred. A UAP was encountered by Chilean naval officers while they were flying along the coast of Santiago in their aircraft, helicopter. They were left completely bewildered and perplexed by the events they encountered. They were at an altitude of approximately 4,500 feet and continued to record this peculiar-looking UAP for 9 consecutive minutes. Initially, it appears to be an elongated missile that is moving horizontally. However, as time progresses, the frontal portion of the UFO advances, leaving behind a long horizontal section. The Chilean military was unable to identify this unusual aerial phenomenon, despite analyzing the footage for 2 years. Additionally, it appears that extraterrestrial beings are involved, possess a clandestine lunar facility. We should persist in our pursuit of additional information. Number 12, Ukrainian soldiers observed an unidentified flying object, UFO, during the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Vladimir Putin. The president of Russia recently declared that he would employ nuclear weapons if NATO deployed its troops to Ukraine to engage in combat against Russia. Subsequent to Putin's catastrophic nuclear threat, Ukrainian soldiers observed a peculiarly eerie UFO. This is the second instance in which a UFO has been observed in a conflict zone. Typically, UFOs have been observed in the sky. Unidentified flying objects, UFOs, have been observed over cities and mountains. However, combatants have rarely observed them during an active conflict. The footage depicts Ukrainian soldiers from the 406th Battalion who are left speechless and appalled upon witnessing the UFO in their immediate vicinity. They are not to be held accountable for their reaction, as they initially believed that the aircraft was a new Russian model that was prepared to launch a nuclear attack. However, the UFO was disc-shaped and remained stationary in the air for the entire duration. This is entirely, the Ukrainian soldiers were taken aback, as they can be heard muttering in Russian out of dread of being unable to understand the events they had just witnessed. The Ukrainian armed forces employed a thermal vision quadcopter drone to capture the eerie footage. This enigmatic hovering object bears a striking resemblance to the Baghdad Phantom, a thin, cylindrical object that was observed above Iraq in May 2022 by the infrared thermal camera of a U.S. Air Force Reaper drone. Additionally, this was not the only occasion on which military personnel who had been trained arrived, across extraterrestrial spacecraft. A metallic sphere with the identification number 13 was observed at the U.S. Navy Air Display. This uncommon occurrence occurred in May 2024, less than 2 months following the LaGuardia Airport black disk incident. In Long Island, a Navy Air Display was in full motion on the bright morning of May 28, with an abundance of enthusiastic spectators. The Blue Angels, a flight demonstration squadron of the United States Navy, were also in attendance at the air display on that particular day. Additionally, as is customary, individuals were capturing footage of the erratic fighter jet maneuvers when one of something truly inexplicable was observed by the spectators. The Super Hornet jet is evidently moving from right to left in the video captured by this particular witness. However, if you slow down the video, you will observe a shiny metallic sphere quickly passing by the U.S. Navy aircraft. The incident occurs so rapidly that, if not for the vigilant spectator, an individual would have believed it to be a mere insect that had crossed in front of the camera. Not only the United States Navy has encountered metallic spheres of this nature in the past. Pilots, Colombian commercial pilots, and even U.S. military personnel stationed in the Middle East. Therefore, what was the maximum speed of this UFO, which was only visible when the footage was slowed down, in the absence of any visible means of propulsion that were known to humanity? And what is even more intriguing is that these metallic spheres are typically observed in close proximity to military installations. Therefore, are these extraterrestrial beings maintaining a vigilant watch over our military technology? Are they conducting this in order to determine whether we pose a threat to them prior to making any decisions? What type of communication do you have with us? The 14th number. A UFO was observed by a United States fighter aviator over the East Coast. The Pentagon has informed legislators that it has compiled 400 reports of unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs. Of these, 11 were near misses with aircraft. Additionally, UFOs have been observed by members of the United States military on numerous occasions. A few of these encounters have even been documented on film. A significant number of these footages have been declassified and made available for public viewing. A single instance of this uncanny imagery was recorded in 2021. The F-18 of a Navy aviator was in flight. He was flying a fighter aircraft off the East Coast when he abruptly observed an unusual phenomenon in his airspace and reported it to the command center. The pilot subsequently resolved to remove his mobile phone in order to record the events as evidence, and the footage he captured is as follows. The UAP was so swift that we were compelled to halt the video in order to catch a glimpse of it. Additionally, the UFO was traveling at simulated velocities without any discernible means of propulsion. A closer examination of the still image reveals that it appears to be metallic sphere, which bears a striking resemblance to the metallic spheres that have been observed in Colombia and the Middle East. Naval intelligence was unable to provide a definitive response to the nature of the UAP during the congressional hearing that took place in May 2022. Specify the subject of our examination. What are we observing? In this video, it is somewhat reflective. And it swiftly passes by the cabin of the aircraft. The primary concern that has yet to be satisfactorily addressed is the reason for the high number of UAP sightings in military areas, aircraft, and bases. Are the extraterrestrials closely monitoring our military technology, or are they preparing for a more malevolent event, such as a full-scale invasion? Number 15. A triangle formation of unidentified flying objects was observed over Manhattan. Manhattan, the most densely populated of New York City's 5 enclaves, is home to iconic landmarks such as the Rockefeller Center, the Empire State Building, and Times Square, which are world-renowned tourist attractions. Additionally, these densely populated regions frequently serve as the sites of UFO activity, occurs at its highest point. On the evening of May 15, 2021, Hamid Vitalis was fortunate enough to observe this event while strolling along the Brooklyn Promenade on his way to work. His attention was immediately drawn to the peculiar light formation in the sky, and he promptly captured the event on his phone. 3 dazzling lights are visible in the night sky, arranged in a triangle shape and equidistant from one another. This appears to be strikingly similar to the triangle-shaped UFOs that were captured on the doorbell camera in Sunrise, Florida in 2023. For an extended period, these lights were stationary. However, when an incoming commercial aircraft began to approach these brilliant objects, 2 of them abruptly vanished, leaving only one bright light visible. Subsequently, the third light gradually diminished, suggesting that the aliens perceived a threat from the approaching commercial flight and evacuated in order to preserve their anonymity and safety. The 16th number. An unidentified flying object was observed in South Asia. This forward-looking infrared camera captured video footage of a UAP camera. In the same vein as the majority of the UAP evidence that the military has captured, the precise time at which the footage was captured remains unclear. This occurrence occurred in a location within South Asia. A routine surveillance operation was being conducted by an unmanned aerial vehicle, MQ-9, for the United States Air Force when a highly dubious object abruptly passed in front of it. It appeared to be a circular disc, resembling a craft that was traveling in a straight line at a relatively high speed. This imagery was captured by an additional MQ-9 that was in the vicinity. The craft's oblong shape is readily apparent when the video is paused. This UFO is strikingly similar to two other UFOs that have been observed in the vicinity of private and military airspace. One that was observed over LaGuardia Airport in New York and the Baghdad Phantom that was observed north of the city of Baghdad in Iraq. The All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, ARO, which is responsible for the investigation of unidentified aerial objects, has indicated on its official website that the object is likely a commercial aircraft, and that the trailing cavitation is a sensor artifact that is a consequence of video compression. However, there is no aircraft that is presently known to man that resembles the UFO that was observed in South Asia on that day. Therefore, is the United States Department of Defense intentionally concealing an actual UFO sighting? This was not the first instance in which the United States Air Force encountered a UFO in the atmosphere. UFO observed in the night sky of Oklahoma. Number 17. This is yet another sighting that occurred in 2024. An Oklahoma resident was savoring a tranquil evening on March 4. He was standing outside his residence with his children when they abruptly observed an unusual object above them. They observed an object in the sky that was remarkably dazzling and emitting a luminous white light. He initially believed it to be a shooting star, however, it was traveling at an alarmingly sluggish pace to qualify as such. The observers were further perplexed when the UFO abruptly released a white plume of air that resembled a shock wave. Some individuals actually believe that this was merely a missile launch that is being exaggerated. On that same day, it was unexpectedly, SpaceX conducted a launch from Cape Canaveral, Florida, on that particular day. However, that launch occurred at a completely distinct time and location from the UFO sighting. Therefore, is this merely an extraterrestrial organization monitoring our space launches? Elon Musk recently stated, "I don't see any evidence of aliens." This statement may be due to the fact that Starlink satellites have never evaded UFOs, or it could be that these UFOs are simply too fast to detect. Additionally, we will witness two additional UFO sightings that occurred in close proximity to the United States military. Tic Tac number 18, UFO. The footage was captured aboard a Navy fighter jet from the nuclear aircraft carrier USS Nimitz in 2004. And the sighting occurred. The Rathan Advanced Targeting Forward-Looking Infrared Pod, which is equipped with the most sophisticated sensors and tracking system in the world, was employed to capture the footage. This oblong object was observed at an altitude of nearly 20,000 feet. Additionally, this UAP did not emit any vapor columns, as in the case of a conventional aircraft. The fighter jet was traveling at a speed of approximately 250 miles. That is the case, nearly 300 miles per hour. Therefore, the UFO was also traveling at a comparatively high rate of speed, similar to the fighter aircraft. The fighter pilot made numerous attempts to alter the tracking mode in order to gain a more comprehensive comprehension of the UAP. But to no avail. Afterward, the UAP abruptly accelerated to the left at an unprecedented rate, vanishing from the sensor's view, after nearly a minute and a half of tracking. The fighter jet was unable to track it after that. Are the aliens already cognizant of the fact that the U.S. fighter aircraft is following them? Additionally, were they merely engaging in a game? Number 19. UFOs were observed in Sunrise, Florida. In 2023, this footage was captured at night from a doorbell camera in Sunrise, Florida. 3 unidentified flying objects, UFOs, are observed in this video moving in the shape of an equilateral triangle. Maintaining such a formation at high velocities would be exceedingly challenging for any of the existing aircraft. Subsequently, the unidentified flying objects disperse in various directions. An additional video of the same incident was captured by an eyewitness in a different region of Florida. The credibility of the sighting. This footage provides us with a more comprehensive comprehension of the actual distance between the three UFOs. Upon viewing the initial footage, it appears to be a solitary vessel with three lamps illuminating its three sides. However, the three UFOs begin to operate independently and move in opposite directions in a precise, synchronized manner. This becomes evident later on. Drone air displays have witnessed this type of coordinated movement. However, the drone would have to be extremely enormous. Nearly equivalent to an airplane. To radiate such a brilliant light in the night sky from such a high altitude. Many individuals in Florida remain unaware of the events that transpired that fateful evening. Additionally, we will observe the UFO that nearly alarmed the Chilean military personnel as we advance. Baghdad Phantom, number 20. The Baghdad Phantom was the appellation given to this sighting, which occurred in Baghdad, Iraq. At the time of the observation, this was a conflict zone in full swing. On May 14, 2022, this observation occurred. The United States captured 6 classified images to the north of Baghdad. The Air Force employs a Reaper drone equipped with a thermal camera. Jeremy Corbell, a filmmaker and upologist, subsequently disclosed the jellyfish UAP video at the beginning of 2024, and these images were subsequently disseminated. The thermal spectrum was not visible. But the fact that something of that nature appears to have a payload is a significant issue. It has the potential to be hazardous. Therefore, these are of the utmost importance. Upon combining these 6 images, it is evident that a disc-shaped object is rapidly traveling from left to right. Crafts that operate at a rapid pace are propelled by propulsion systems, such as motors or missiles, that generate heat. Nevertheless, the thermal camera that captured the object indicated that it was slightly colder than its surroundings. This demonstrates that it was undoubtedly not a rocket. It also suggests that the spacecraft was constructed using cutting-edge technology. For a brief moment, you may believe that you are viewing UFO footage over LaGuardia Airport, but it is actually infrared. Both of these disks exhibit a remarkable resemblance and were observed within a 2-year period in close proximity to military and national facilities, airspaces. Was this the same UFO that was monitoring America's military operations? The disk was classified as an unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAP, by the United States military. This case has been brought to the attention of ARO, an institution established by the Department of Defense to investigate unidentified aerial objects. ARO is currently conducting its own investigation. The filming of the Baghdad Phantom UAP was not an isolated UAP event in the region during this 24-hour period. The UAP event was captured on film, and it featured UAPs of varying shapes, sequence. However, a further astonishment occurred when a UFO was observed in close proximity to a U.S. military fighter jet as the aircraft departed Baghdad. 21st. A UFO was observed in the Middle East. In April 2023, the classified footage was disclosed by the United States Department of Defense. This footage was captured in a location within the Middle East. The precise location has not been disclosed. It appears that a silver orb-like object crossed the sensor's field of view. And a military drone captured it. The video was captured on July 12, 2022. According to the Department of Defense, that the object continues to remain unidentified despite the completion of numerous analyses. The soaring object appears to be a round, metallic, and shining weapon that is traveling in a straight line. Then, abruptly, it shifts to the right as the military drone attempts to capture its position. This demonstrates that the UAP's cutting-edge technology was capable of identifying the U.S. military drone without making any physical contact, even at the conclusion of the video. The military drone was unable to maintain its focus on the UAP due to its tendency to avoid the sensor. Then, 1 year later, NASA conducted a press conference in June 2023 to discuss the specific UFO sighting. NASA is also collaborating closely with the Pentagon to determine the specific issues they encountered in the Middle East. However, for military personnel, this was not the initial encounter with such a metallic sphere. As we proceed, you will be astounded by the proximity of certain UFOs to the military. 22. 3 unidentified flying objects were observed in Texas. This observation occurred on a balmy night in September 2018 in Tomball, a town located just north of Houston. A group of friends had just returned to their apartment complex after dining out that evening when they abruptly observed something unsettling in the night sky. 2 dazzling, stationary lights appeared in the sky without warning. And then, all of a sudden, the third one became visible, as if it were concealing its presence from everyone. Then, the 2 lights drew away from the third one, circulating in a formation, but eventually returning to a triangle formation. Then, abruptly, after a period of time, the unidentified flying objects, UFOs, have abruptly vanished and re-emerged. An ex-military member of the United States Air Force was one of the eyewitnesses, and he was certain that the sight he witnessed that evening was not of this world. He was unequivocal in his assertion that they were not pyrotechnics or any aircraft that he was aware of. The triangle-shaped UFO that was captured on a doorbell camera in Sunrise, Florida in 2023 is strikingly similar to these UAPs. Additionally, this was not the sole instance in which a UFO was observed in Texas. In April 2022, in a village named, according to Kyle, an unusual UFO was captured on camera, emitting an orange radiance that has never been observed in any other UFO sightings. Additionally, local officials were unable to provide an explanation for the orange UFO, as they always have been. However, what is the reason for the high number of sightings in and around Texas? Is there a covert base in Texas that extraterrestrial retain that we are unaware of? Discussing military installations. The proximity of certain unidentified flying objects, UFOs, to U.S. Navy warships was unexpected. We should continue to observe in order to acquire additional information. Number 23. The United States Navy observed a triangular craft. Once more, this footage was disclosed by ufologist Jeremy Corbell, who had previously released the Jellyfish UAP video. The video was obtained in 2019 by a night vision camera aboard the destroyer USS Russell and was recorded by U.S. Navy personnel. Later, in 2021, Jeremy Corbell disclosed this information. The classified briefing provided by the government explicitly stated that the triangular UFO was not owned by the United States, any other country, or a private space flight firm. There are those who believe that this may be an enhanced version of the Northrop Grumman. The U.S. military may have been conducting testing of the B-2 Spirit, also known as the stealth bomber, at that time. Similarly, the stealth bomber 2 exhibits a triangular shape and a comparable flight pattern. It is surprising that the military personnel who captured this video reported that the UFO was behaving in an unanticipated manner. Furthermore, the Enigmatic Aerial Phenomena Task Force, which was established in 2020, was unable to ascertain the nature of the craft. In the future, we will examine another immense UFO sighting that took place in the form of a triangle. Number 24. Florida, United States. UFOs were observed on the moon from Moscow. UFO activity is not limited to Earth, it also occurs on our natural satellite. On the moon, a photographer from Moscow, Russia, captured an image that left him completely captivated. In any case, there are conspiracy theories that the moon is an extraterrestrial base. However, this footage has only served to reinforce these beliefs. In 2019, a Russian photographer positioned his equipment to capture a full moon over the city of Moscow. Additionally, while endeavoring to concentrate, observed an extremely uncommon event. Initially, he observed 3 circular objects in close proximity to the moon's surface. Subsequently, upon attempting to refocus to verify his observations, he was astounded to observe that there were now numerous circular UFOs traveling at the same velocity from left to right over the moon. It appeared as though an entire battalion of unidentified flying objects was departing for a mission over the moon. Analysts have yet to determine the precise nature of these circular lunar objects that were in flight. It appears that one of these extraterrestrial beings, the cylinders, were transported to South America. 25. A UFO is observed hovering over the airport in Puerto Rico. This incident occurred in Aguadilla, a city located in Puerto Rico. In April 2013, a Customs and Border Protection aircraft captured the captivating footage over the Rafael Hernandez Airport. The forward-looking infrared camera that was monitoring the movement of this UFO was experiencing significant difficulty in maintaining its surveillance due to its agile movement and high speed, as evidenced by the footage. The footage depicts a sphere-shaped object that flew rapidly over the airport, followed by commercial buildings and roads. The military personnel who captured the footage also stated that the UFO exhibited characteristics that are inexplicable by any known aircraft or natural phenomenon. Also, they stated that this UFO was undoubtedly smaller than an aircraft. It is possible that the projectile was sent by an extraterrestrial civilization to conduct a survey of the airport area. The sphere was pursued by the CBP aircraft for a period exceeding 10 minutes. During this period, it gradually advanced toward the ocean. This was the point at which the situation became more peculiar, as the sphere abruptly submerged in the water. Upon its ascent from the water, it disintegrated into two unidentified flying objects that were traveling at the same velocity. The unidentified flying objects, UFOs, once more submerged, but this time they were never observed again. The military personnel were bewildered and appalled by the events they had just witnessed. Unexpectedly, metallic spheres of comparable dimensions have been observed over military bases in the United States. We should continue to view the video in order to obtain additional information. The number 26 UFO was reported over New York. LaGuardia Airport in York. This is the most recent occurrence on the list. It was only recently in March 2024 that this disturbing incident occurred. On March 25, Michelle Reyes was aboard a commercial flight that flew over New York's LaGuardia Airport. Suddenly, she observed something that was highly unusual as she was leisurely recording a video of New York's skyline, as is customary for travelers as their aircraft prepares to land. A black disc-like object with an enigmatic and ominous appearance flew past her aircraft from the right to the left. The shadowy object was traveling at an approximate speed of, they were situated at an elevation of 2,500 feet above the earth and were relatively near to the aircraft. The motion was extremely rapid, however, upon pausing the footage, it is evident that this unmanned aerial vehicle, UAP, was not a drone or any other piloted aircraft that we are aware of. Presently, we shall observe the footage in real time. Despite the fact that the aircraft and the UFO are traveling in opposite directions, it appeared as though the UFO was traveling at an incredible speed, comparable to that of a fighter jet. Yet, no drone that has been manufactured by humans has been able to attain simulated speed while in flight. Following the recording of the footage, Michelle Reyes promptly notified the Federal Aviation Administration via email regarding her observations. However, the FAA remains uncertain as to the nature of the enigmatic black disk. Additionally, this is not the initial instance in which a UFO has been observed flying in close proximity to an airport. Number 27. A commercial aviator in Colombia observed an unidentified flying object. This is without a doubt one of the most incisive pieces of evidence regarding UFOs that has ever been captured on film. The pilot of a commercial aircraft captured the unique video in Colombia. In February 2020, an Airbus A320 was in the air, cruising over Medellin, Colombia, on a routine voyage. The pilot opted to utilize his smartphone to capture the view at an altitude of approximately 30,000 feet. However, to his surprise, he observed a metallic cube with pointed edges that were traveling in a straight line in a continuous manner. Now, if this were a weather balloon, it would sway from left to right. However, it appeared to be traveling forward in a single direction, suggesting that it was being propelled by a powerful engine. A comparable object was observed by an individual. In 2018, a United States fighter aviator flew over the Atlantic Ocean at an altitude of 35,000 feet. The UFO in question has yet to be identified, but its structure appears to be strikingly similar to the cube-shaped structure observed by the Colombian pilot in 2020. The US and Colombian militaries are unaware of whether these are sensors sent to monitor the region or extraterrestrial manned spacecraft. However, these UFO sightings pale in comparison to the incidents that the United States military has confronted on other occasions. 28. Humanoids measuring 10 feet in height are situated on a Brazilian mountain. Therefore, for those who persist in asserting that UFOs and aliens are exclusively observed in the United States, this is a special offer. Two peculiar alien entities were observed on a hill on an island located 3 kilometers off the coast of southeast Brazil, just 1 week following the Miami Shadow extraterrestrial encounter in January 2024. The footage was captured by local trekkers, who reported that 2 extraterrestrial entities were observed on the mountain. The creatures were reportedly 10 feet tall, resembling the Miami Shadow alien. The rationale as to why they assert the reason they are so tall is that the shrubbery on that hill was barely reaching their knees, which would ideally cover half of a typical human. Subsequently, the aliens were observed to descend the incline at a faster pace than the average human, evidently due to their elevated height, which resulted in longer strides. The creatures were referred to as strange beings by the provincial government of Brazil, which also commented on the video. Were these the same creatures that were observed in Miami on New Year's and have since relocated to South America? The number is 29. A Colombian aviator observed an unidentified flying object. This observation occurred at Antioquia, Colombia, was the site of the event on May 4, 2023. The pilot captured the footage while flying in his Cessna T-30 Crusader. He stated that the object was initially observed to be floating and appeared to be stationary at a specific location between Medellin and Santa Fe. The UAP abruptly advanced toward them as they approached. Subsequently, he maneuvered his aircraft and initiated photography. However, the UAP began to approach them. He was able to evade the UAP while traveling at a speed of approximately 300 km per hour. The pilot maintained that the object was not a drone, balloon, or any other known object, and he expressed dread during the encounter. Additionally, soaring spheres of comparable dimensions were observed in other regions of the globe. We should persist in our pursuit of additional information. Jellyfish UAP in Iraq is number 30. Investigative journalists Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp initially disclosed this footage on January 10, 2024. An ufologist and filmmaker, Jeremy Corbell is situated in Los Angeles. He obtained this footage from 2018 of a UAP incursion that was filmed by the military, within a joint operations base in Iraq operated by the United States. As a result of its jellyfish-like aspect, this UAP was promptly dubbed the Jellyfish UFO. The UAP was only visible to the U.S. military drone that was monitoring it in thermal vision. The drone that was assigned to monitor this UAP has the capacity to focus on the tire of a remote vehicle from a distance of up to 27 miles. However, the Jellyfish UAP proved to be a challenge for this sophisticated U.S. military drone to identify, thereby suggesting that an extraterrestrial technology was attempting to disrupt the transmissions of the drone in order to prevent the UAP from being detected. And the peculiar aspect is that it alternated between white and black, which signifies instantaneous heat and cold, in order to avoid detection by the thermal vision camera. This suggests that the UAP was aware that it was being monitored for the heat it was emitting and made immediate adjustments to avoid detection. Consequently, it may suggest that a sentient being was operating the UAP. The UAP first hovered over the U.S. Army base for a period of time before descending into a body of water and remaining submerged, for approximately 17 minutes. Following 17 minutes, it emerged from the water at a 45 degrees angle with an incredible velocity and vanished. Did the UAP submerge itself in order to evade the U.S. surveillance drone, or was this a component of its mission to investigate the underwater region surrounding the military base in search of additional weaponry? Regardless, the United States military is unaware of its nature, the narrative concludes at this point. Please remember to subscribe to the channel in order to view additional videos. So long, and I look forward to seeing you again.